Hello everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk about our risk indicator for Link and give an update about what it's been making of Link's more recent price action. If you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter, where we put out regular updates about our risk indicators and more. So if you've seen our first Link video, then you're quite familiar with this graph, but in brief what I'm showing you here is the price history of Link across time. The price is in logarithmic form, each dot is a day, and each day is color-coded to the output of our risk model, the upside-downside potential indicator. So 5 is high risk, -5 is low risk. And what we talked about in the first video, and what you can see here, is that this model is very good at identifying these low-risk periods in Link's history when acquiring Link has been historically advantageous, as well as these high-risk periods, these tops, where distributing Link or selling out of Link has also been historically advantageous. Those are good, have historically been good take profit zones. And so what we've talked about before is that the UDPI really did identify the summer as being this great buying opportunity. And so then we've seen this kind of big move out of the summer. And so Link actually flashed up into the red zone kind of immediately coming out of the summer. It's kind of been moving sideways, had another kind of nice push upwards a little bit more recently, got a little bit overheated, and now has been correcting downwards. Now, I think it's useful to say that I don't think this correction is really all Link's fault, or maybe not even at all Link's fault, because what's been going on more recently, as we all know, is that Bitcoin had put in a new all-time high at 69K and has now been correcting down from that. And as I record, we're at around 56, 57K, that general range. And so when Bitcoin corrects, it tends to be the case is that altcoins will also correct, and altcoins actually tend to be hit a little bit harder. You know, they'll fall quite a bit further relative to the dollar oftentimes than what Bitcoin does. And so Link has probably just gotten caught up in that. And so it's hard to know if this correction was really something to do with Link itself, or it's just the broader crypto market that kind of ended up tanking it. But what you can see is that what's going on with the UDPI more recently is that the risk level has been falling. So you see we're going from these orange areas down here into the yellow. So risk has actually been falling on Link as it's been correcting. And I suspect what would likely happen is that if Link does keep on correcting beyond where it is right now, the risk will continue to fall even more. It might be even a better kind of opportunity with Link. Or even if it just starts kind of consolidating here, maybe going a bit sideways, risk might also continue to bleed, suggesting that moves to the upside might become a little bit more likely. Now, I think it's also useful with Link to think about other things that might be going on that might also have been depressing its price action. Because I think one of the things that I've been hearing with Link, and for full disclosure, I do hold some Link, and so I've been wondering these things myself, is, you know, it's not been unimpressive what Link's been able to do out of the summer, but when you compare it to some of the other crypto projects, some of the other altcoins that are out there, that have really exploded out of the summer, it's been a little bit perplexing why Link hasn't also done really well. You know, it seems like it is a very fundamentally strong project. You know, crypto will need data oracles, which of course is what Link is. They need a way of getting outside data and then connecting them to their smart contracts and things like that. And, you know, Link is the most prominent data oracle. It's the most prominent source of that outside information that people will use for things like those smart contracts. And so because crypto kind of needs that as part of its integration, all those layer ones that have really been exploding, things like Solana, you know, AVAX, you know, they obviously all need that kind of oracle information for any kind of smart contract or any kind of DApp that wants to deploy on their networks to have that kind of outside information. So it's a little bit weird then that why hasn't Link gotten so much attention or so much a price appreciation, whereas all those other assets have. And obviously, it's hard to really know the exact cause, but one of the things that I kind of wonder about, and I think kind of fits with some of the narratives that have been going on with crypto right now, is it seems like people have been more and more kind of wanting tokens that provide additional utility beyond just the kind of speculation of price increase in the future. You know, so with the rise of things like DeFi, where kind of a big facet of that is different tokens that provide different amounts of yield, so you get a benefit from holding the token beyond just hoping it increases. And also with the layer 1 protocols, a lot of them are proof of stake, and they allow for delegated or delegated staking as part of their mechanisms, where essentially, you know, people can just delegate their crypto assets to a node operator and then reap rewards from the rewards that the node operator is getting. So it's a way of generating pretty safe passive yield, and some of them offer pretty attractive yield on it as well, you know, around 10%, which obviously in DeFi terms isn't necessarily high, but relative to what you're getting in, you know, a savings account or something like that is quite good. And it's obviously also quite low risk, which also makes it potentially attractive to people. And of course, Link doesn't have that. Link does not have a delegated staking system as part of it, at least not yet. Potentially they might add that in the future, but that's not a thing that exists right now for Link. And so really with Link, one of the issues that I see with it is that if people are looking for this kind of extra utility from the token, maybe a way of staking it, kind of earning passive income, passive yield, Link is not a token that offers that right now. And so one would have to go to a different asset. And so it might just be that when people are kind of deciding what they want to invest in, they might say, well, here are these other projects that are doing well and they have delegated staking. That might be one reason why you might want to do it. Not to say you can't earn yield on Link. Obviously you can earn yield on Link through DeFi. If you put it, use it to add liquidity in a DEX, although of course there's risks with that, with impermanent loss, or different platforms where you could, put up stake your Link and then people could borrow, basically earn interest through a borrowing kind of a system. That's obviously possible, but that's possible with any crypto asset, and the yield isn't always super impressive with some of those things. So that's just one thing. So obviously I don't know, that's just me speculating, but that could be one reason why maybe Link hasn't been performing as explosively as some of these other assets more recently, because it doesn't necessarily offer that extra utility. Now that said, I'm still bullish on the fundamentals of Link, obviously, so don't take any of that as me of spreading FUD or anything like that. It's not my intention at all. I think fundamentally it's a very strong project, but I do think that right now what the market is valuing doesn't necessarily fit super well with what Link is offering, and it might be that we'll need to wait for a kind of rotation in what the market is valuing. Maybe there's going to be a time when oracles become the next hot thing and really explode, and that might be kind of the thing that will really make Link realize some of what I think a lot of people would think is its fundamental value. I think a lot of people who own Link think that it should be doing a lot better than it currently is, and that the market's kind of being irrational. But some of the things I've been thinking about more recently is why might the market not be valuing it as highly as some people think, and that's just one thing I've been thinking about, is that if people are looking for this kind of yield generation tool that's really easy and really safe, like through these proof of stake networks, Link doesn't currently offer that. And I know there's a lot of people in the Link community who want that, so maybe that's something that will eventually come down the line, but it doesn't exist quite yet. But to talk a little bit more about the risk level of Link and where we stand right now, so here's where we are. So this is what I'm showing you here is the raw output of the UDPI over time, so 5 high risk, -5 low risk. And what we can see is that, coming out of the summer, Link had spiked well above 3, actually, which would suggest that it was getting quite overheated, so that correction off of that actually made quite a bit of sense. And then it started moving back up to the upside, but now we've kind of gotten this pullback that's happening. And again, I think it's potentially the case that this isn't really necessarily Link's fault, that if Bitcoin hadn't, had that correction, maybe Link would have just been able to keep going up and really kind of rally a bit further off of that. But of course, Bitcoin correcting like it has dragged down the rest of the crypto market as well. Link's risk has been the price has been falling, so the risk has actually also been falling as well. And so it's actually below 0 now, and so that would suggest that the upside and downside potential, they're relatively equal right now, although actually this suggests that the upside potential is a little bit larger than downside potential currently. But in the current market situation right now, with Bitcoin being kind of uncertain footing right now, I'm personally still overall bullish on the market. I think that we're in a bull market till proven otherwise. The uptrend of Bitcoin has not been invalidated yet by any means, and so I'm hopeful that Bitcoin will be able to hold support at its current levels, or at worst case scenario, be able to hold, support at like 53K or something like that, and then be able to move back to the upside. But we don't know. There's obviously always uncertainty with these kind of things, and so it's always a little bit dubious to be too bullish on altcoins when Bitcoin is in that kind of predicament. Because if Bitcoin were to fall further, or if it were to break support at 53K and fall even further than that, altcoins are going to get absolutely wrecked relative to Bitcoin. Altcoins are going to not do well in that kind of scenario, and I would expect Link to follow suit. I don't see any reason why Link wouldn't also correct pretty heavily if Bitcoin were to fall to those lower levels that it, theoretically could fall down to. And so personally, when I see a risk level of, a little bit below 0 in these current market conditions, it's hard for me to be too excited about that, because, there's a non-zero chance that the correction could go quite a bit further, then the risk could fall a lot further and offer just a better opportunity at that later point in time. But of course, it's also not bad. We're not sitting up at 3 or any of those really high risk levels. And so certainly the risk reward ratio, of a entry in Link right now is not terrible, but it's hard for me to be too bullish. Now, again, that's not financial advice. You should make your own decisions. And I should also clarify that when I'm talking about being bullish or bearish, this is really more kind of short to intermediate period. I think long term, I'm very much bullish on Link. I don't think Link's going anywhere. I think it's going to do quite well this market cycle. But I think just in this more kind of short term, it's hard for me to be seeing this as, you know, a fantastically amazing buying opportunity at the current risk level. That's just my interpretation. Again, not financial advice, but just how I'm interpreting this risk output. So to talk a little bit more about where we are currently with Link, you know, the risk stands at negative 0.25. So again, not a bad proposition by any means, but not fantastic either. You know, we're not down in those deep green levels. And so it's not saying that's a roughly even ratio right now. And so it really comes down to your thesis. I think if you have a really strong conviction, if you really believe that Bitcoin's going to hold support where it currently is and is only really going to be moving up from here, then this might end up being the best opportunity that Link is going to provide us before it starts moving up again. So that's all I tend to consider. But personally, I'm just being a little bit, taking a more cautious approach. You know, just in case Bitcoin does fall to 53K or something like that, it's hard for me to see this as being, you know, a home run by any means. And the other thing that you can always look for with these risk levels that can be useful as well is to look for these kind of reversal points. And that's personally what I'm looking for with Link right now, is that you can see that the risk has just been falling pretty precipitously right now. Usually when you see this bottoming out in this reversal here, that tends to suggest that the bottom is either in or is close. And so that's what I'm kind of looking for. When I see a convincing reversal in the risk for Link, that might make me think that the bottom is likely in and that we may not necessarily be going down a whole lot further. Now, of course, you can't necessarily always take that to the bank as being a guarantee, but oftentimes when you see these reversals, it does correspond with a trend reversal in the price. So that's what I'm looking for, is if the risk starts really bottoming out, and especially if Bitcoin starts looking more healthy, that's when I become a lot more kind of short-term or intermediate-term bullish on Link. But in the current way as it stands, I'm just being a little bit cautious. Again, not financial advice, just where I'm sitting here. And I think the other thing that's important to keep in mind with an asset like Link is that, you know, it's not the only altcoin out there. You know, there's a bunch of other ones that we're monitoring right now that we have risk indicators for. And what you can see is that obviously Link is not providing the worst risk reward opportunity right now. You know, AVAX is quite overextended. Helium's quite overextended as well, sitting up here at 4. So Link looks quite a lot better than those. But if you compare Link to some of these other ones we're monitoring, like ADA, which is at basically negative 1.8 here, you know, Algorand, XRP has been quite low for a while. HBAR is quite low now as well. Those might be offering slightly more favorable risk-reward propositions currently than Link. And again, that's not to say that those projects are fundamentally better than Link or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to say here. It's just purely looking at their risk levels. They're offering a better risk-reward ratio right now than Link is, according to the model. So again, it's up to you to make your own decisions, but it's just important things to keep in mind that, you know, Link does not exist in a vacuum. You know, obviously Bitcoin matters, but then also just comparing its risk levels to other assets can be a useful thing to consider. All right, if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter. And remember, with UDPI, we're all going to make it.